In the shadowed aftermath of loss and betrayal, a solitary figure stands at the edge of a new beginning, a beginning forged in heartbreak, yet tempered by hope. The night had been long and unyielding, leaving her weary but resolute, as if every droplet of rain that fell had washed away a part of her past. This is Lara's world, a place where love and loyalty battle with loneliness and regret in a timeless struggle that seems both otherworldly and achingly real. Imagine a night so heavy with sorrow that it feels as if the entire world conspires to keep its secrets hidden. Lara's heart, once brimming with unshakable faith, now trembles under the weight of shattered dreams. She lost everything: her family, her love, and even the belief in herself. And yet, in the silent corners of her mind, a spark of defiance glows. Faint, but persistent. It is this spark that propels her forward into a life defined by conflict and mystery. A life where every step is both an act of courage and an invitation to fate. In this lonely hour, as she stands beneath the pale glow of streetlights that paint her world in shades of silver and blue, Lara reflects on the choices that led her here. There is a haunting irony in the fact that the one person who could have been her salvation, Gabriel, once rejected her, unaware that in doing so, he was denying himself a future filled with a deep, soulful connection. Their bond, as inevitable as the pull of gravity, now calls to her from across the chasm of time and pain. Together, despite the scars of the past, they are bound by a destiny that neither can fully escape. But can their love survive the storms of their intertwined fates? Or will the ghosts of yesteryear conspire to tear them apart once more? As the night deepens, Lara's thoughts wander to the life she once knew, a life where the laughter of her family echoed in the corridors of a home that no longer exists, where the warmth of true love had the power to mend even the deepest wounds. That light is now dimmed, replaced by the stark reality of isolation. Yet even in isolation, there is a beauty, a raw, unfiltered beauty in the struggle of a soul that dares to dream again. Each breath she takes is a silent vow to reclaim her strength, to redefine her destiny, even if the path is littered with fragments of past betrayals and unanswered questions. The cinematic quality of her existence is almost palpable. Every detail, from the soft rustle of the wind to the echo of distant footsteps, seems meticulously choreographed, as if life itself were a grand film directed by fate. The world around her pulses with hidden rhythms, a secret score that heightens every emotion and underscores every pivotal moment. The streets, the whispering trees, and the quiet hum of a sleeping city all play their part in setting the stage for what is to come. In the distance, a subtle shift in the air hints at an approaching change. Shadows stretch longer, merging with the inky darkness of night, while flickers of distant light offer a promise of new possibilities. It is in these moments, suspended between what was and what might be, that Lara feels the tug of her inner wolf, a primal force stirring beneath the surface, urging her to awaken to the power that lies dormant within her. This inner struggle, raw and unspoken, is a battle between vulnerability and the fierce determination to overcome the odds. And in this battle, every heartbeat is a defiant declaration. I will not be defined by my losses. Yet, amidst the turbulent echoes of memory and the silent clamor of an uncertain future, one question remains. Can forgiveness truly bridge the gap between a painful past and a hopeful tomorrow? The answer is elusive, wrapped in layers of mystery and longing. As Lara steps forward, the flickering lights of the city seem to whisper secrets of a destiny yet unfulfilled, a destiny where every moment holds the promise of redemption, and every choice echoes with the possibility of love rediscovered. This is more than a story of lost love and lingering regret. It is an odyssey of the human spirit, an exploration of the delicate balance between solitude and unity, between the relentless pull of the past and the beckoning call of the future. And as Lara's journey unfolds, one can only wonder, will the mysteries of her heart find resolution, or will the shadows of her past continue to shape her destiny in ways she never imagined? Lara's morning began not with the gentle caress of dawn, but with a struggle to force her heavy eyelids open in a world that seemed determined to keep her in darkness. The classroom was dim and quiet, the low hum of a projector barely cutting through the silence as she fought to cling to wakefulness. Her head felt as if it were weighted down by an unseen force, each blink a battle against the lingering sleep that threatened to claim her completely. Her body was a map of exhaustion. Muscles ached from a night of restless tossing and turning, and a persistent throb behind her eyes reminded her that sleep had been a scarce, fleeting visitor. Every time she tried to focus on the teacher's monotonous lecture, the words seemed to slip away like wisps of fog, leaving her grasping at shadows. The scent of stale coffee and the distant murmur of other students struggling with their own fatigue mingled with a subtle, almost imperceptible aroma of wild earth, a reminder of the untamed nature that lay dormant beneath her human guise. In that moment, the physical toll of a sleepless night was overwhelming. Lara could almost feel the pressure of unseen claws, a primal sensation echoing deep within her veins. It was as if her body was slowly morphing, the exhaustion stirring something ancient and wild within her. The constant gnawing weariness seemed to blur the line between human fatigue and the stirring of her inner wolf, a creature of instinct and raw power waiting for its moment to emerge. As she sat at her desk, every sound was amplified in the silence of her mind. The scuff of a shoe on the floor, the soft rustle of paper, and even the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall all carried the weight of her thoughts. Each tick was a reminder of time slipping away, of the opportunities and challenges that lay ahead. In those moments of deep, unyielding weariness, she questioned whether her current state was merely a sign of weakness or a prelude to the inner strength that she sensed stirring beneath the surface. Her classmates' faces blurred into a haze of indistinct features, their voices merging into an indistinguishable chorus that barely penetrated her foggy mind. Yet, in the midst of her exhaustion, there was a flicker, a small, insistent pulse deep within her. It was as if the very core of her being was awakening to a power that had lain hidden for far too long. The sensation was subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but it grew steadily, a rhythmic heartbeat of something fierce and untamed that resonated with every fiber of her being. Lara's eyes darted around the room, and for a fleeting second, she thought she saw the shadows in the corner of her vision shift. It wasn't just fatigue. It was the stirrings of her other self, the part of her that could no longer be contained by the limitations of a sleepless human night. The faint echo of a growl, buried deep within her, whispered promises of resilience and raw power, a secret strength that only revealed itself when she was pushed to the brink. In that moment, she wondered, can exhaustion, that relentless force, dragging her into oblivion, also be the crucible in which her true power is forged? Could the very fatigue that now threatened to overwhelm her serve as a catalyst for a transformation that would unlock a wellspring of inner strength? The question hung in the air, mingling with the low hum of the classroom and the silent rhythm of her heart. Even as her mind battled the tug-of-war between sleep and wakefulness, Lara felt a stirring of determination. The weight of her physical weariness was immense, yet within it lay the seed of something extraordinary. It was as though the exhaustion was not merely a sign of her frailty, but a prelude to a profound metamorphosis, a quiet signal that deep within, she was ready to harness the dormant power of her werewolf nature. The morning light, weak and uncertain through the classroom window, began to chase away the shadows of night. Each passing moment, as the clock ticked relentlessly forward, pushed Lara closer to the edge of revelation. Amid the fog of fatigue, the embers of her inner strength glowed, demanding to be noticed. And as she struggled to remain conscious, a single burning question remained. Is it possible that this exhaustion, this overwhelming need for sleep, might actually be the very crucible in which her true indomitable self is being born? Lara's journey into the depths of her new reality began with the relentless call of the pack, a summons that transcended ordinary duty and reached deep into the core of her being. As the moon ascended high and cast its silver glow over the rugged landscape, Lara found herself immersed in a series of border patrol shifts that felt both like a necessary distraction and a rite of passage. Each shift was a lesson in resilience, a rigorous training ground where the weight of her past tragedies slowly began to lift, replaced by the steady cadence of purpose and survival. The cool night air bit at her skin as she moved silently along the perimeter of the territory. The rhythmic sound of her boots on the gravel and the distant howls of her pack members formed a haunting symphony, a reminder that she was never truly alone. The physical exertion of patrolling the borders was more than just a duty. It was a call to awaken the latent strength that had long simmered beneath the surface. With every step, Lara could feel her senses heightening, a subtle transformation ignited by the memory of her 16th birthday, a moment forever etched in her soul. That fateful day, on the cusp of adulthood, her inner wolf had first stirred, breaking free from the confines of mere human frailty. It was a revelation that reshaped her identity, linking her to a legacy of untamed power and fierce loyalty. In those early hours of awakening, she had felt a surge of raw, almost primal energy, a connection to the wilderness, and a destiny that beckoned her toward a future as formidable as the full moon. Since then, every patrol, every strenuous run through the wild, brought her closer to that essence, reminding her that her strength was both a gift and a responsibility. Guiding her along this treacherous yet exhilarating path was Julian, a steadfast mentor who had been a pillar of support ever since her world was upended. Julian's presence was a soothing balm against the scars of loss, his seasoned wisdom a beacon that lit the darkest corners of her troubled mind. He had known her father, and his unyielding dedication to the pack had made him both a guardian and a teacher. Under his watchful eye, Lara learned not only the mechanics of patrolling a rugged border, but also the art of harnessing the wild spirit within. His lessons were laced with the kind of gritty realism that came only from decades of experience in the pack's brutal, yet honorable ways. Each training session was punctuated by moments of shared silence, where Julian's quiet nod or a few well-chosen words could convey more than any lecture. In those instances, Lara felt a growing certainty that the pain of her past was slowly giving way to a new kind of power, one forged in the fires of discipline and the unyielding bonds of family. The terrain under her feet, the crisp rustle of leaves in the midnight wind, and even the scent of distant pine all conspired to remind her that she was becoming something more than she had ever imagined. With every patrol shift, her inner wolf grew bolder, its call merging seamlessly with the pulse of the earth beneath her. As the weeks turned into months, the once tedious border patrols evolved into a dynamic dance between man and nature. Lara's body, hardened by relentless training and the echoes of loss, began to move with the fluid grace of a creature born to the wild. Her senses sharpened to a degree that allowed her to detect even the faintest whisper of movement, a rustle of fur, the subtle shift of wind carrying an unfamiliar scent. These sensory awakenings were not just physical improvements. They were the heralds of a destiny that was slowly unfurling before her eyes. In every patrol, in every rigorous training session under the star-studded sky, the future of a pack warrior and a revered Luna was being meticulously written. In the quiet aftermath of each shift, as the adrenaline ebbed and a profound calm settled over her, Lara would look up at the constellations and wonder about the path ahead. The lessons of discipline, the silent guidance of Julian, and the raw, untamed power of her own wolf had conspired to set her on a course that was as unpredictable as it was inevitable. The border was not merely a line that separated territories. It was a boundary between who she was and who she was meant to become. With each passing night, the call of the pack resonated louder, whispering promises of battles yet to be fought and victories yet to be won. As Lara took a deep, steadying breath, a single thought lingered in the cool night air. Can she truly rise above her past and embrace the formidable destiny that awaits her as a pack warrior and future Luna? The night seemed to hold its breath, leaving the question suspended, a tantalizing promise of transformation in the endless dance between light and shadow. Haunted by the echoes of a past she cannot escape, Lara finds herself drifting back into memories that are as painful as they are unforgettable. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the world is hushed and vulnerable, the ghosts of her parents' final hours emerge, swirling around her like a spectral mist. The vivid images of that tragic night, the desperate choice her mother was forced to make, the cold finality of her father's last breath, replay over and over in her mind, each moment more haunting than the last. Lara's memories are painted with the kind of cinematic detail that makes reality feel like a shattered mirror. She recalls the sound of her father's labored breath as he fought to protect the fragile unity of their small family, his eyes full of unspoken love and quiet defiance. In those final moments, when danger lurked in the shadows and the heart of the pack trembled, he stood as a pillar of strength, a beacon of hope that now exists only in the recesses of her memory. And then, there was her mother, so gentle, so luminous in her unwavering devotion. But when the weight of loss became unbearable, she chose to vanish from the world, her soul slipping away as if it were a fragile candle flame snuffed out by an unseen wind. The image of her mother's tear-streaked face, etched with pain and sorrow, still lingers in Lara's mind. It was as if her very essence was tied to that fleeting moment, when a soulmate bond, so profound and sacred, was tragically severed. In the realm of werewolves, the connection between soulmates is more than mere love. It is a fusion of hearts, minds, and the very spirits that animate their existence. It is a connection so deep that time itself halts at the mere glimpse of one's destined partner. For Lara, that fateful connection with her parents was a promise of unity, a vow of eternal belonging that was cruelly shattered in the wake of loss. Every sensory detail of that time has been seared into her being. The cool touch of autumn rain that once washed away the pain of a shared embrace, the bittersweet aroma of wild lavender that filled the air during their quiet moments together, all serve as reminders of a love that once promised forever. Yet, when that promise was broken, the void left behind was immeasurable. A cavern of grief that has since defined much of her life. The tragedy of her mother's desperate decision not only robbed her of the warmth of a family, but it also carved a lasting scar into Lara's soul, making it difficult to trust that love could ever be whole again. In the solitude of her own thoughts, Lara finds herself questioning whether the raw, unyielding pain of loss can ever be softened by the tender balm of forgiveness or the rebirth of new love. Every heartbeat echoes with the memory of what was lost, yet it also pulses with the unspoken hope of what might be. In moments of quiet introspection, she sees flashes of her parents' smiles, the gentle laughter that once filled their home, and she wonders if these memories could ever be transformed into a foundation for healing. The solitude of her journey is illuminated only by the quiet glow of a distant moon and the inner light of a spirit that refuses to be extinguished. Despite the relentless barrage of sorrow, a part of Lara dares to dream of a future where forgiveness might mend the deep wounds left by the past. Could a new love, a soulmate yet to be found, be the key to unlocking the pain that has haunted her for so long? Could the embrace of someone who truly understands her, who cherishes the beauty in her brokenness, finally mend the fractures in her heart? As the night deepens and the winds whisper secrets of both sorrow and hope, Lara stands on the precipice of her own transformation. The memories of her parents' deaths, their silent sacrifices, and the painful choice her mother made continue to cast long shadows over her life. And yet, within those shadows, the seeds of resilience and the possibility of redemption are quietly taking root. The lingering question remains, a question that hovers like a delicate, unanswered note in the still air. Can forgiveness and the promise of new love ever truly heal the deep, unyielding wounds of a tragic past. The day began with an unremarkable hum that belied the undercurrents of destiny swirling around Lara. As she trudged into school that morning, every step felt weighted with distraction, her mind still caught in the tangled web of sleepless nights and painful memories. The corridors of the school, though ordinary at first glance, were bathed in a soft, almost surreal light that made the familiar seem mysterious. Each echo of footsteps, each whisper of conversation, hinting at a secret. Life beyond the mundane. In class, Lara's gaze drifted past the rows of desks, losing herself in a sea of blurred faces and indistinct murmurs. The teacher's words floated in the air, but they barely registered with her as she wrestled with the remnants of exhaustion and grief. Her thoughts wandered to the lessons of her past, to the quiet strength that lay buried beneath the surface of her sorrow. The monotony of the lecture, punctuated by the scratch of chalk on the board, underscored the quiet dissonance within her, a deep longing for something extraordinary to break the routine. Between classes, the schoolyard transformed into a stage for interactions that carried the weight of unseen dramas. Lara's path soon crossed with Dylan and Reed, two figures whose presence was both comforting and curiously charged with energy. Dylan, with his easy grin and mischievous spark in his eyes, exuded an effortless confidence that seemed to mask a complexity only hinted at in his playful banter. Reed, ever the silent sentinel, carried an air of responsibility and quiet leadership, a contrast that drew Lara's attention in subtle yet profound ways. Amid the throng of students, twin figures caught her eye. Charlotte and Ella, the spirited daughters of the third in command. Their eyes, alight with the unmistakable gleam of their wolf side, were windows into a world that blended the ordinary with the supernatural. Though they were still learning to control their shifting nature, there was an innocence in their untamed gaze, a raw, unfiltered glimpse into what it meant to be part of a pack, of being connected to something larger than oneself. The interactions on the playground were laced with a tension that made every exchange feel significant. Amid the laughter and casual chatter, subtle power dynamics played out like an intricate dance. The relationships within the pack were woven into every conversation. Small gestures, knowing glances, and the undercurrent of loyalty and rivalry that defined their unspoken code. Lara observed it all with a sense of detached wonder, feeling simultaneously a part of the community and apart from it. Her own inner world was a labyrinth of emotions, yet the palpable energy of these interactions stirred something deep within her at lunch, as she sat quietly at a worn table in the bustling cafeteria. Lara's attention was intermittently drawn to the subtle shifts in tone and expression among her peers. Conversations about weekend plans, shared jokes, and the casual mention of upcoming pack events all seemed ordinary on the surface, but in every smile and every furrowed brow, she sensed a story unfolding, a narrative of alliances, unspoken rivalries, and destinies intertwined by the bond of the pack. Even as she nibbled on her food, her mind was alive with questions. How would these relationships shape her future? What roles would Dylan's carefree charm, Reed's stoic reliability, and the wild, spirited nature of the twins play in her own journey? As the school day wore on, the corridors became a tapestry of fleeting moments. Hushed whispers in hidden corners, a brief touch on a shoulder, and the silent acknowledgement of shared struggles. Every interaction carried an unspoken promise, a hint of the extraordinary lurking just beneath the surface of everyday life. Lara couldn't help but wonder if these connections, these seemingly trivial exchanges, were laying the groundwork for something more profound. Were they the threads that would eventually bind her to her destiny, forging bonds that could either mend her wounded heart or plunge her deeper into the labyrinth of her own inner conflicts? By the end of the day, as the final bell rang and the ordinary world of school faded into the evening, Lara felt a lingering uncertainty. The familiar surroundings of her school, with its routine and predictable cadence, had transformed into a microcosm of hidden potential, a place where friendships and alliances hinted at future challenges and triumphs. With each step out of the building, a quiet question reverberated in her mind. How will these delicate yet powerful connections shape the future of a girl who walks a precarious line between the human and the wild, between loss and the promise of new beginnings? Lara's arrival at the pack house felt like stepping into a world both familiar and otherworldly, a realm where the echo of past memories intermingled with the promise of a new beginning. The mansion loomed before her, its towering facade adorned with pristine white walls that shimmered under the glow of twilight, while dark windows punctuated its grandeur like silent sentinels. The entire structure exuded a sense of history and strength, a fortress built not only to protect, but to nurture the spirit of the pack. As she pushed open the heavy front door, a wave of warmth washed over her, a stark contrast to the cool night air outside. The sound of laughter and soft conversation floated from the spacious foyer, where elegant chandeliers cast a gentle glow over polished marble floors. It was as if the very walls of the pack house whispered stories of unity, of shared triumphs and quiet moments of solace, creating a tapestry of familial love and unwavering loyalty. Grace, with her ever-present smile and open arms, greeted Lara as though she were a long-lost family member returning home. Her voice was melodic, yet grounded, a soothing balm that eased the weight of Lara's weary heart. "Welcome home, Lara," Grace said warmly, her eyes sparkling with genuine affection. In that instant, the strain of endless patrols and the burden of recent sorrows seemed to melt away, replaced by the comforting embrace of belonging. Grace's gentle touch, as she guided Lara further into the heart of the home, spoke volumes of the pack's unspoken commitment to one another. The interior of the house was alive with sensory details that invited Lara to immerse herself fully in the present. The faint aroma of a hearty meal, perhaps a robust stew or freshly baked bread, mingled with the subtle hint of pine from the surrounding forest, evoking memories of carefree days spent wandering wild, open spaces. Soft, ambient music played. In the background, its mellow notes wrapping around every corner and creating an atmosphere of understated elegance. Every sound, from the rhythmic ticking of an antique clock to the gentle rustle of leaves visible through large arched windows, contributed to a sense of calm that was as profound as it was elusive. The pack house wasn't just a building. It was a living, breathing embodiment of the family spirit that defined them. Photographs and mementos adorned the walls, a collage of faces, moments, and memories that celebrated generations of unity and sacrifice. In the dining area, a long, sturdy table bore the marks of countless shared meals, each scar a testament to laughter, debates, and the occasional heated discussion that only strengthened their bond. Every detail, meticulously arranged yet bursting with character, spoke of a legacy that Lara was now a part of, willingly or otherwise. As Lara wandered through the corridors, she felt the pulse of the house, an undercurrent of secrets, hopes, and unspoken promises. There was an almost tangible presence of the past, a reminder that every room held echoes of those who had come before her. Yet, amid these hallowed halls, there was also the vibrant energy of the present, a family in the process of healing, of embracing both joy and sorrow with equal fervor. The pack's dynamic was intricate, woven from threads of tradition, duty, and deep, unyielding affection. But even as the atmosphere radiated warmth, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that there were layers yet to be uncovered, mysteries that would eventually reshape the contours of their lives. In a quiet moment, as she stood in a sunlit alcove overlooking a sprawling garden where wolves played and patrolled in harmonious unity, Lara allowed herself a rare moment of introspection. The comforting sounds of familial chatter and gentle music blended with the rustle of trees and distant calls of the wild. Yet, beneath this idyllic surface, a subtle question began to form in her mind. As the pack continues to grow and the shadows of their past intertwine with the promise of tomorrow, how will these deep, hidden secrets alter the delicate balance of their family? It was a question that lingered, soft yet insistent, urging her to consider that while home was a sanctuary, it was also a crucible where truths were forged in the fires of experience. And so, amidst the embrace of the pack's warm welcome and the serene beauty of her surroundings, Lara wondered quietly, what mysteries lie in wait within these walls, and how will they shape the destiny of the family she now called home? The dining room buzzed with an energy that blended familial warmth with the gentle chaos of everyday life. As Lara settled into her seat at the long, weathered table, the clatter of cutlery and the soft murmur of voices filled the space, creating a backdrop that was both comforting and charged with quiet anticipation. Grace, ever the heart of the family, flitted from one end of the table to the other, checking that every dish was perfect. A steaming bowl of hearty stew, freshly baked bread with a golden crust, and vibrant seasonal vegetables that lent a burst of color to the spread. Across from her, Julian sat with a calm authority that softened into gentle encouragement as he listened to the conversation. His eyes, full of wisdom born from years of navigating life's tumultuous waters, held a quiet pride whenever he caught Lara's gaze. Dylan, with his characteristic playful charm, was busy teasing her about an upcoming math exam, his light humor acting as a welcome antidote to the academic worries that had shadowed her mornings. "Come on, Lara," Dylan chuckled, nudging her with a crooked smile. "You've got to focus on more than just your wild adventures. Even warriors need to count their arrows." His remark drew a round of laughter from the table, momentarily dissolving the tension of looming responsibilities. Lara's cheeks warmed with a blend of amusement and exasperation, and for a moment, the weight of her decisions seemed to lift. Yet, as the conversation flowed from playful banter to more serious topics, the underlying current of future choices began to surface. Between bites of stew, Lara's mind drifted to the crossroads she faced, a decision between pursuing college and embracing full-time warrior duties. The prospect of academia, with its promise of knowledge and new perspectives, battled with the call of the pack, the legacy of her father, and the raw, untamed allure of a life led by instinct and duty. Grace, sensing the shift in Lara's mood, reached out with a gentle squeeze of her hand. "You know, sweetheart," she said softly, her tone a soothing balm amid the clamor. "There's no wrong choice. Both paths can lead you to where you're meant to be. Sometimes, life is about finding a balance between what we learn and what we are born to do." Her words resonated deeply, mingling with the shared laughter and earnest glances that filled the room. Julian added, his voice steady and reassuring, "Every warrior must choose his own destiny, Lara. Whether you walk the halls of a college or stride the rugged trails as a warrior, remember that you're not alone in this. We're here to help guide you every step of the way." His statement, imbued with the quiet confidence of a seasoned mentor, sparked a sense of security that only deepened Lara's appreciation for the unwavering support of her makeshift family. Meanwhile, Dylan's eyes sparkled with mischief as he interjected another playful comment about the lighter side of academic life, comparing the pressure of exams to the chaos of a full-moon night shift on the pack's borders. His humor was infectious, and for a moment, even the weight of impending decisions seemed almost manageable. Yet, as the meal continued, an undercurrent of uncertainty seeped back into the conversation. The chatter, once filled with light-hearted quips, now carried hints of worry about the future. Lara listened as fragments of conversation revealed the challenges that lay ahead, the academic pressures that might distract from her inherent strengths, and the unspoken question of how to balance her duty to the pack with her desire for personal growth and exploration. Every smile, every gentle pat on the back, and every whispered word of encouragement from Grace, Julian, and even the teasing jests of Dylan underscored the reality that she was not facing these dilemmas alone. Instead, she was surrounded by a support system that had weathered storms and shared in both the laughter and tears of life. Their presence was a quiet reminder that while the path before her was uncertain, she had allies who would help bear the weight of every choice. As the dinner drew to a close, The conversation slowly subsided into a comfortable, reflective silence. Lara's thoughts swirled with the possibilities of tomorrow. Each decision a delicate step between the security of tradition and the wild, uncharted territories of her own aspirations. In that quiet moment, as the soft clink of empty plates and the lingering aroma of a shared meal filled the room, one question remained, echoing softly in her mind. Can she find the balance between duty and desire, between the echoes of her past and the promise of a future that is hers to shape? The night crept in slowly, its cool embrace a gentle contrast to the lingering warmth of the family dinner. In the quiet solitude of her room, Lara prepared for sleep, a ritual that became a moment of both vulnerability and silent strength. Stepping into the shower, she welcomed the cascading water as a temporary escape, each droplet washing away the echoes of the day. The steam swirled around her, blurring the lines between reality and reverie, as if inviting her to leave behind the burdens of a waking world. The water's rhythm became a soft, meditative chant, a lullaby that soothed her aching muscles and quieted the storm of thoughts that danced behind her eyes. After the shower, a sense of urgency spurred her to change. Quickly. The night had already deepened, and time seemed to press in on her, urging her to seize these fleeting moments of calm. In a playful yet determined rush, Lara slipped into her favorite comfortable outfit, a soft, oversized sweater paired with well-worn jeans that had seen countless adventures with her. As she fastened the buttons and adjusted the fabric, her reflection in the mirror revealed a woman who had endured so much yet remained unbroken. There was a glimmer in her eyes, an unspoken promise that tomorrow would be another chance to redefine her fate. Just then, the door creaked open, and Dylan's light-hearted presence filled the room. His teasing smile was an instant antidote to any lingering solitude. "You know," he quipped, leaning casually against the doorway, "if you change that outfit any slower, the moon's going to be jealous of your delay." His tone was playful, his voice warm with familiar affection, and for a moment, the weight of the day lifted entirely from her shoulders. Lara rolled her eyes, a soft laugh escaping her, and retorted, "Maybe I'm just savoring these precious moments, before the night devours them completely." Their banter danced between playful teasing and genuine concern, a small respite that reminded her she was never truly alone. In the quiet corners of her mind, as Dylan's laughter echoed softly in the background, Lara's thoughts turned inward. She marveled at the juxtaposition of her fragile exterior and the fierce resilience that had carried her through endless trials. The vulnerability she felt was not a weakness, but a necessary contrast that highlighted the strength simmering beneath the surface. With every whispered memory of loss and every burst of laughter shared with her chosen family, she understood that life was a delicate balance between sorrow and joy, between solitude and connection. As she settled onto her bed, the dim glow of a bedside lamp casting gentle shadows across the room, Lara's internal monologue grew softer yet more profound. She thought about the transient beauty of these nightly rituals, the soothing steam of the shower, the quick, efficient act of dressing, the light-hearted teasing that bridged the gap between exhaustion and wakefulness. Each act was a small victory, a moment of reclaiming her power in a world that often demanded so much. The vulnerability she embraced tonight was a necessary step toward healing, a reminder that even in moments of solitude, she was building the strength needed for the challenges that lay ahead. Yet, as she closed her eyes and the room settled into a hush, a subtle, mysterious thought began to unfurl at the edge of her consciousness. The coming night, with its deep shadows and secret whispers, seemed to promise more than just rest. It carried with it the silent stirrings of fate, a destiny intertwined with her mate, whose presence lingered like an unspoken promise. The memory of her last encounter with him, the way his eyes had shimmered with an enigmatic intensity, now mingled with the quiet murmur of the dark. What new revelations might the night hold? Could the mysterious forces that had guided her through days of uncertainty now reveal clues to the destiny that awaited, a fate that seemed destined to be, forever entwined with the one she both cherished and questioned. In that delicate moment between wakefulness and sleep, as the gentle hum of the night seeped into every corner of her mind, Lara allowed herself one final, lingering question. In the tapestry of darkness and light that is the coming night, will the secrets of her mate and the promise of what lies ahead finally reveal a path toward the redemption and strength she so desperately seeks? Lara's eyes fluttered open to an icy chill that crept through the room, a stark contrast to the lingering warmth of her dreams. The unfamiliar space was dimly lit by the pale light of early dawn filtering through frost-edged windows, casting long, eerie shadows on the cold, bare walls. Her body, still heavy with sleep, trembled slightly as she slowly became aware of her surroundings. Every detail was heightened, a faint metallic scent in the air, the subtle hum of a distant air conditioner, and the crisp sound of her own shallow breaths mingling with the quiet of the room. In the dim light, her vision settled on a familiar silhouette beside her. Gabriel lay still, his presence a silent reassurance in the midst of her disoriented awakening. His steady, rhythmic breathing was a comforting counterpoint to the unsettling cold that enveloped them both. For a moment, the shock of the unfamiliar environment was softened by the gentle warmth emanating from his side, a warmth that spoke of deep connection and unspoken promises. Despite the chill that stung her skin, Lara found solace in the proximity of her mate, his steady heartbeat, echoing softly in the silence. As the fog of sleep lifted, Lara's mind drifted in that liminal space between dreams and reality. The cinematic quality of her awakening was almost surreal, a delicate dance of shifting images and emotions. She felt as if she were suspended in time, each second stretching out like a frame in an old film reel. The cold was not just a physical sensation, but also a metaphor for the uncertainties that had seeped into her life, a reminder of the distance that sometimes grew between desire and destiny. Yet the closeness of Gabriel, with his gentle warmth and protective aura, created an emotional counterbalance that was both unexpected and deeply moving. The quiet intimacy of this moment, marked by the soft rustle of sheets, the slow, deliberate rise and fall of his chest, and the tender curve of his hand resting near hers, was a subtle promise of connection. It was a delicate, almost fragile comfort that whispered of both safety and the possibility of renewal. In that fragile early morning light, Lara's heart fluttered with a mix of contentment and a lingering hint of trepidation. Questions began to stir in her mind as the chill of the room contrasted with the warmth of his presence. What did this quiet, intimate moment signify for them? Was it a fleeting comfort in a world that often felt cold and unforgiving, or did it foreshadow a deeper, more enduring bond that could help them navigate the uncertainties of their shared future? The stillness of the room, with its soft, almost imperceptible sounds, seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for an answer to emerge from the silence. Lara's thoughts wandered to the journey that had led them here, a path marked by hardship, betrayal, and the persistent hope for redemption. Gabriel, whose eyes had once burned with a mixture of regret and longing, now offered an unspoken solace in this very moment. His presence was a paradox, a comforting anchor in a realm of uncertainty, a reminder that even when the world seemed unfamiliar and cold, there was a part of him that had remained constant. The emotional tension between fear and comfort wove through her mind, creating a rich tapestry of conflicting sensations. She could feel the chill of the unknown, yet the warmth by her side hinted at a future where such contrasts might eventually blend into a harmonious whole. In that fragile dawn, as she lay there listening to the soft, steady sounds of Gabriel's breathing, Lara found herself pondering the dual nature of intimacy. It was a space where vulnerability met strength, where the fear of exposure was countered by the comfort of deep connection. This quiet intimacy, so raw and unguarded, beckoned her to consider the possibilities of what their future might hold together. Could these tender moments be the foundation upon which they rebuilt trust and understanding? Or was it merely a transient lull before the inevitable storms of their complicated lives would return? As the first rays of light crept further into the room, warming the edges of the cold interior, Lara allowed herself one final, lingering question to echo in her heart. In the silent dialogue of dawn, what does this delicate, unexpected closeness between us truly foreshadow for our relationship? Will it be a harbinger of lasting unity, or a quiet prelude to the challenges yet to come? The sudden silence was deafening. One moment, Lara lay in the tender, cold intimacy of their shared space, and the next, Gabriel was gone. 1 minute, he was beside her, steady, comforting, a beacon in the dim early light. And then his absence struck like a lightning bolt, leaving an aching void in its wake. Lara's heart pounded as she reached out instinctively, her fingertips meeting nothing but the cool, unyielding air where his warmth had just been. In a burst of desperate energy, she threw off the covers and scrambled to her feet, her breath quickening as she searched the room. Every second felt stretched, each moment pulsing with uncertainty and fear. Her mind raced with frantic questions. Why had he left so abruptly? Was it the chill of the room, the cold unfamiliarity of their surroundings, or something deeper stirring within him? The absence of his presence was a wound that reopened old scars, igniting an internal fire that urged her to act, to chase, to reclaim the connection that had always bound them. Lara rushed toward the door, her bare feet padding softly on the cool floor. With each step, the intensity of her emotions grew sharper. A cocktail of confusion, panic, and a reawakened mate bond that pulsed within her veins. The house, once a sanctuary, now seemed like an echoing maze of emptiness. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, and every sound, the creak of a floorboard, the distant murmur of the night, seemed to underscore the urgency of her chase. Bursting through the door into the night, Lara was met with a whirlwind of cold air and the stark reality of the outside world. The cool night had turned into a chaotic blur of motion as she sprinted after the figure she could no longer see. Her legs propelled her forward with a kinetic force that surprised even her, driven by the raw, primal need to understand, to connect, to hold on to something that was slipping away like water through her fingers. The path was shrouded in darkness, punctuated only by the occasional glimmer of streetlights. Every shadow on the pavement became a question mark, every gust of wind a whispered secret of what might lie ahead. The reawakened mate bond surged within her, electrifying her senses with memories of shared warmth, tender glances, and silent promises exchanged in the quiet hours of dawn. It was as if their connection was a living entity, powerful, unyielding, yet fragile in its vulnerability. As she chased through winding streets and over uneven pavements, Lara's thoughts swirled in a storm of emotions. The image of Gabriel, his eyes dark with unspoken intent, and his departure so abrupt, haunted her. The intensity of her pursuit was matched only by the turbulence within her soul, a tumult of desire, hurt, and a desperate need for clarity. Each step was both a physical sprint and an emotional leap into the unknown, a determination to follow the lingering trace of his presence wherever it might lead. In that frantic chase, every sensory detail was magnified, the rapid thud of her heart, the shudder of the cool night air against her skin, the sound of her own labored breathing mingling with the distant echo of his retreating footsteps. She could almost feel his energy lingering on the wind, a reminder that their bond was not so easily severed, even by a sudden departure. And yet, as she pushed herself harder, the haunting question grew louder in her mind. What had compelled him to leave? Was it fear, regret, or some secret turmoil that only he could understand? As Lara rounded a corner and slowed to catch her breath, the night seemed to hold its answer in the quiet murmur of the dark. The chase had led her into a labyrinth of conflicting emotions, a place where passion met perplexity and love collided with uncertainty. In that charged silence, as she paused to gather herself, one question burned bright in the stillness of her mind. What are Gabriel's true motives behind this sudden, heart-wrenching departure? And where does this unexpected twist lead their fragile, reawakened connection? Lara stood at a crossroads, both literal and metaphorical, as the weight of her decisions pressed down on her like an unyielding tide. The life she knew, rooted in the safety of her pack, the warmth of family, and the familiar embrace of her homeland, was now at odds with the magnetic pull of Gabriel and the tumultuous world he represented. Each step she took seemed to echo with the memories of past rejections and whispered rumors, stirring a maelstrom of doubts within her soul. The news of her pregnancy had come like a thunderclap, shattering the quiet normalcy she had clung to for so long. In the midst of whispered conversations and sidelong glances, rumors began to weave their way through the pack. Some murmured that her condition might change everything, threatening not only her future, but also the delicate balance of power within the territory. Others speculated about the legacy of her unborn child, casting shadows of uncertainty over what should have been a moment of joy. The fear of repeated rejection, the same cruel dismissal that had once left her heart in tatters, gnawed at her every thought. Could Gabriel, whose sudden departure had already caused such a profound rift, truly stand by her now? Or would history repeat itself, leaving her to bear the weight of solitude and unfulfilled dreams once more? In the quiet solitude of the night, when the world around her seemed to hold its breath, Lara wrestled with her inner demons. The familiar safety of her family's territory beckoned, a sanctuary where time-honored traditions and the unconditional support of those who cared for her promised a steady, if predictable, future. Yet on the other hand, the pull of Gabriel's world, raw, unpredictable, and laced with a passion that both thrilled and terrified her, called out like a siren song. Each territory represented a different version of her destiny, one where duty and security reigned supreme, and another where the fierce, unyielding pursuit of love and redemption might finally mend her shattered heart. Her mind was a battlefield of conflicting desires. In the safety of her pack, Lara could feel the steady beat of loyalty and the warmth of familial bonds, where every member was committed to the collective well-being. The prospect of raising her child in such an environment, surrounded by love and guided by time-tested wisdom, was undeniably comforting. Yet, deep within her, there pulsed an unquenchable desire for something more, an intimacy and passion that had been awakened by Gabriel, despite the wounds his actions had inflicted. That allure was dangerous, intoxicating, and filled with the promise of healing old scars, even as it risked reopening them. Every conversation, every quiet moment, reminded her of the precariousness of her situation. Grace's gentle reassurances and Julian's steadfast advice offered a semblance of stability, while Dylan's light-hearted jests masked his own unspoken concerns. They all, in their own ways, tried to guide her toward a future where her duties as a member of the pack and her personal desires could coexist. But the decision was hers alone to make, and the magnitude of it left her trembling with uncertainty. Each day brought new questions. Could she truly split her life between two worlds without compromising the essence of who she was? Would the constant tug-of-war between duty and passion eventually tear her apart? Or could it forge a new strength within her, a strength that might reconcile the past with the possibilities of tomorrow? As the soft glow of the moon filtered through her window, casting gentle shadows on the floor, Lara's thoughts swirled in a vortex of hope and fear. The quiet of the night, usually a time for reflection and calm, now carried a heavy, almost oppressive tension. Her heart pounded with the weight of decisions that could alter the course of her life forever, each beat echoing the possibility of both triumph and heartache. In that silent, solitary moment, she could only ask herself with a trembling voice, can she ever find a balance between the duty that binds her to her family and territory, and the wild, unyielding call of her heart? A call that promises both redemption and the risk of losing herself once more? In the hushed glow of early morning, The world seemed to pause as a new life burst into existence, a delicate, radiant promise amid the echoes of the past. Kennedy's birth was a bittersweet symphony of joy and sorrow, a moment when time itself appeared to hold its breath. As Lara cradled her tiny daughter for the first time, she was overwhelmed by a tide of emotions that mingled love, guilt, and the lingering pain of what had been lost. Kennedy, with her soft, round features and the unmistakable spark of her father's eyes, was a living echo of Gabriel, a mirror reflecting both his captivating intensity and the secrets of a love that had once been so profound. In that fragile moment, Lara's heart swelled with an immense, almost uncontainable love that transcended words. The sight of her daughter, so small yet brimming with potential, stirred a deep maternal instinct that whispered of hope and renewal. It was as if Kennedy carried within her the promise of mending broken bonds, a silent vow that even the darkest of pasts could yield to the tender light of new beginnings. Surrounded by the comforting embrace of her pack, the celebration was both jubilant and solemn. Family members gathered with a mix of unspoken understanding and cautious optimism, their faces lit by soft smiles and glistening eyes. Grace's gentle touch on Lara's shoulder, Julian's nod of quiet approval, and even Dylan's teasing grin conveyed a deep sense of unity, a collective hope that this child might be the key to healing wounds that had long festered in the shadows. Yet, amidst the warm celebrations, there remained an undercurrent of unresolved pain, a silent reminder of losses that could never be fully erased. Lara's thoughts, as she rocked Kennedy in her arms, wandered through the corridors of memory. Each tender moment with her daughter was a stark contrast to the heartache of her own past, a past filled with abandonment, regret, and the cruel sting of rejection. The bond she felt with Kennedy was a balm to those old wounds, a chance to rewrite the narrative of her life with a chapter defined by love and resilience. But with that love came a heavy dose of guilt, a guilt born from the shadows of her own shortcomings and the memories of a relationship that had once promised forever, only to leave her shattered and alone. In the midst of the celebration, the gentle murmur of supportive voices and the soft clink of dinnerware provided a backdrop to the complex tapestry of emotions. The pack, a living family bound by loyalty and shared hardship, radiated a bittersweet unity that underscored the fragile balance between joy and sorrow. Their laughter and murmured blessings were like whispered prayers, a collective hope that the arrival of Kennedy might somehow bridge the chasm of past mistakes and lost opportunities. Yet, each smile carried its own silent question: could the light of a new life truly dispel the lingering darkness of old wounds? As the day unfolded, Lara's gaze often drifted to Kennedy's tiny, sleeping form, a serene picture of innocence and unspoiled promise. The baby's soft breathing and peaceful expression stirred a deep longing within Lara to believe in second chances, to trust that love, however wounded, could find a way to mend itself. But beneath the gentle lull of hope, an unyielding question echoed quietly in her mind, a question that resonated with the gravity of every choice made and every tear shed in the past. In the stillness of that profound moment of new beginnings, Lara allowed herself to be enveloped by both the beauty and the complexity of it all. The overwhelming love for her daughter, the sting of her own unresolved grief, and the hopeful unity of the pack intermingled in a delicate dance, a dance that held the promise of healing, even as it acknowledged the scars that time had etched upon her heart. And as the celebrations slowly gave way to reflective silence, one question lingered, echoing softly amid the tender chaos of family ties and new beginnings. Will the arrival of Kennedy, a precious symbol of both past pain and future promise, finally mend the broken bonds of yesterday and light the way toward a tomorrow filled with unyielding love and hope? In the quiet solitude of a darkened room, Gabriel sat alone with the weight of his memories pressing in like a relentless tide. The soft, ambient light of the early morning barely illuminated the contours of his face, casting long shadows that danced in rhythm with his troubled thoughts. Each shadow, each flicker of light, was a reminder of the moment when he had rejected Lara, a decision that had rippled through his life, leaving him haunted by regret. As he traced the faded scars of the past with his mind's eye, the echoes of his own voice, filled with hurt and defiance, reverberated through the silence. He remembered that fateful night, the shock, the anger, and the overwhelming fear of vulnerability. In that moment, driven by pride and a misguided sense of self-preservation, he had turned away from the woman who had once lit up his soul. Now, with every passing day, the ghost of that rejection grew more insistent, whispering to him in the stillness of the night, a constant reminder of what he had lost. The cinematic quality of his introspection was vivid, the slow, deliberate close-up of his eyes reflecting a sorrow that no one else could see. The muted palette of his memories painted in shades of regret and longing. Every detail, each breath, every heartbeat, seemed to underscore the unbearable burden of his choices. The image of Lara, resilient, yet broken, remained etched in his mind like a cherished photograph, one that had begun to blur with the passing of time, yet refused to fade completely. Gabriel's heart ached with the desperate knowledge that in his rejection, he had not only severed a profound connection, but also condemned himself to a life of yearning. The bond they once shared, a bond that transcended words and defied the ordinary, had been splintered by his own arrogance. He recalled the moments of tender vulnerability, when Lara's eyes shone with unspoken trust and the quiet promise of healing, and he wondered if he could ever repair the damage wrought by his own hands. The pain was palpable, a living, breathing entity that filled the corners of his solitude, making each day a struggle against the pull of remorse. In his heart, a spark of hope flickered, small and fragile, that perhaps redemption might still be within reach. Yet the question lingered. Could he ever reclaim the lost time, mend the rift that had formed between them, and restore the connection that was once so fierce and unyielding? Each night, as he lay awake in the stillness of his room, the regret grew heavier, its whispers echoing in the corridors of his mind, urging him to seek out Lara, to find her, and beg for forgiveness, to undo the damage of a moment's folly. The intensity of his inner turmoil was as kinetic as the crashing of ocean waves. It propelled him into a desperate search, a relentless quest through memories and missed opportunities. Every fleeting glimpse of her smile, every recollection of their once unbreakable bond, stoked the embers of a love that refused to be extinguished, even in the face of insurmountable regret. The very air around him seemed charged with the promise of what might have been, a life where their souls had remained intertwined, where his love could have been the foundation upon which a shared future was built. Yet as dawn slowly broke through the darkness, bathing the room in the soft light of a new day, the question remained, echoing with the weight of all his unspoken sorrows. Can redemption and lost time ever be reclaimed? The quiet murmur of the morning, gentle yet unyielding, carried that question into the realm of possibility. A possibility that, perhaps in the intertwining of fate and forgiveness, there might still be a chance to repair the shattered fragments of a love that once promised eternity. Lara walked through the familiar corridors of the pack house with a heavy heart, each step echoing with the unspoken weight of rumors that had recently begun to swirl around her. The whispers about her pregnancy were like shadows, following her at every turn and coloring even the brightest moments with a tinge of doubt. Every sideways glance, every hushed conversation in the kitchen, reminded her that secrets, no matter how carefully hidden, have a way of creeping into the light. In the midst of a bustling afternoon, as the pack gathered for a casual coffee in the sunlit dining room, Lara felt the sting of judgment and concern blend into one. Grace, ever the nurturer, caught her eye across the table. With gentle sincerity, Grace leaned in and murmured, "You're doing so well, Lara. Just remember, we're all here for you." Her warm words, though laced with genuine support, could not entirely mask the underlying tension that the rumors had sparked. Even as Grace's reassurance offered a small refuge, Lara couldn't help but feel that the echoes of judgment were still hovering, waiting to pull her back into the web of gossip. Across the room, Chloe's bright smile attempted to cut through the murmur of discontent. Yet, there was a subtle frown at the corner of her mouth, a silent question about the sudden changes in Lara's life. Chloe's eyes, always so full of life and optimism, betrayed a hint of concern. "You know," she said playfully, while stirring her tea, "everyone's talking about how strong you are, but sometimes even the strongest need a little extra care." Her tone, light yet tinged with empathy, made it clear that beneath the teasing lay a deep awareness of the pressures Lara was enduring. Then there was Dylan, whose typical easygoing humor usually made light of even the toughest moments. Today, his usual banter was punctuated by a quiet gravity that only Lara seemed to notice. "I heard some folks saying that this whole situation might change everything," he remarked casually, though his eyes darted around the room as if searching for confirmation. His words were delivered with a mix of jest and genuine worry, a reminder that even in a pack where loyalty runs deep, whispers can ripple out and affect personal identity in unexpected ways. As the day wore on, Lara found herself caught in the delicate dance between outward appearances and the inner turmoil wrought by secrets. In the quiet moments, when the pack's lively chatter faded into a soft hum, she wondered how these persistent rumors were reshaping not only how others viewed her, but also how she saw herself. Each fragment of gossip felt like a shard of glass, reflecting distorted images of her own worth. Were these secrets slowly eroding the trust she had painstakingly built with her chosen family? Or was it that the very act of keeping secrets, no matter how noble their intent, had begun to seep into her soul, blurring the line between truth and deception? Lara's mind wandered back to the days when her life was simpler, when love and loyalty were enough to bind her to the pack without the burden of unspoken judgments. Now, the looming specter of her pregnancy was more than just a personal milestone. It was a focal point around which family politics and personal insecurities converged. With every nod of approval from Grace and every cautious smile from Chloe, Lara felt both bolstered and exposed, as if the support they offered was interwoven with an inevitable reminder of how fragile trust can be. In that quiet afternoon light, as the pack's routine activities unfolded around her, Lara couldn't help but ponder the deeper impact of these rumors. What does it mean to carry secrets that are so intimately tied to one's identity? Can the truth of one's heart ever fully counter the damage of whispered doubts? And most hauntingly, will these secrets ultimately define her? Or will she rise above them to reclaim her own narrative? The day slowly faded into a muted twilight, and as Lara returned to her room, the unresolved questions lingered like distant echoes. In the solitude of that dimly lit space, with the soft sounds of the pack's evening murmurs outside her door, she sat quietly, letting the gravity of the secrets and the sting of judgment settle around her. The impact of these hidden truths on her identity and trust was profound, a reminder that even among family, the line between support and suspicion can be perilously thin. And so, with a heavy heart and a mind swirling with uncertainty, Lara was left to wonder. In a world where secrets have the power to fracture even the strongest bonds, can the truth of who she is ever truly set free? Laughter echoed through the packhouse's dining room, a brief reprieve from the weight of past sorrows. As the family gathered for a light evening meal, the atmosphere felt surprisingly buoyant. Grace had just set down a platter of freshly baked bread and vibrant salad when Chloe leaned over with a conspiratorial smile. "You know, Lara," Chloe teased, "if we ever need to name a baby in this pack, I say we pick something that matches your style, like Aurora or maybe Starlight." Lara rolled her eyes, though a smile tugged at her lips. "Oh, come on, Chloe. My name is Lara. Simple, strong, and timeless. Not that I'm opposed to a little sparkle. But let's leave the glitter to the fairies, shall we?" Dylan chimed in, his tone playful as he leaned back in his chair. "How about Kennedy for a daughter? I mean, she already resembles Gabriel. So much, if nothing else, it'll keep the gossip mills busy." The room burst into laughter, and even Lara couldn't help but join in. For a few precious moments, the shadows of heartbreak seemed to recede, replaced by the warmth of genuine camaraderie. Grace's eyes softened as she looked around the table, absorbing the light-hearted banter that filled the space like a gentle melody. "I think a name like Kennedy suits her perfectly," she said with a wink. "After all, it carries the legacy of both strength and hope." Amid the jokes and teasing, Julian, ever the quiet anchor, added, "Let's not forget. Names carry meaning. Kennedy could remind us that every new life is a chance to build a future different from the past." His measured tone brought a thoughtful pause to the playful chatter, a reminder that even in laughter, there were layers of meaning woven through their lives. The conversation shifted seamlessly between jest and heartfelt reflection. Grace recalled fondly how, during quieter times, she and Lara would debate the best names for a baby. Names that resonated with the history of the pack and the promise of new beginnings. "I remember once," Grace began, her voice soft with nostalgia. "We considered the name Seraphina, so ethereal, like a guardian angel. But you, Lara, you always leaned towards something that echoed your own strength." Lara's gaze drifted to the window, where the last rays of the sun filtered in, painting the room with a gentle amber glow. "I guess I just want my child to carry a part of me. A reminder that even when life gets messy, there's beauty in our resilience," she admitted quietly. Yet, even as she spoke, a subtle tension lingered beneath her words, an unspoken reminder of past heartbreak that refused to vanish completely. Dylan's playful remark broke the reflective silence. "Just make sure you don't name her after any of those old family scandals," he joked, his eyes twinkling mischievously, drawing more laughter from the group. The banter flowed naturally, each quip a small spark that lit up the room for a moment. The pack's collective warmth and support was palpable, a testament to their shared history and the unbreakable bonds that held them together. But as the conversation wound down and the laughter subsided into comfortable murmurs, a quiet heaviness began to creep back in. In the corners of Lara's mind, memories of lost love and lingering regret stirred, subtle, yet persistent. The joyful chatter, the teasing about baby names, and the shared light-hearted moments, though momentarily uplifting, could not completely erase the scars of the past. As the family slowly drifted into a contented quiet, with dishes cleared and smiles lingering in the fading light, an unspoken question hovered in the air, a delicate tension that hinted at the fragility of their current peace. Amid the residual echoes of laughter and the soft glow of the evening, Lara's heart whispered, "Will these moments of fragile peace be enough to hold us together? Or will the unresolved emotions of our past shatter this unity once again?" In that suspended moment of calm, as the night crept closer and the pack prepared for rest, the delicate balance between light-hearted joy and deep-seated sorrow remained, leaving everyone wondering what tomorrow might bring. In the quiet solitude of a moonlit evening, Lara found herself lost in a sea of memories, a tapestry woven with threads of youthful desire and the enduring ache of lost love. As she cradled Kennedy close, the gentle rise and fall of her daughter's small chest reminded her of a time when hope had been a bright, unburdened flame. Yet now, that same light was tempered by the lingering shadows of Gabriel's rejection, a wound that time had not yet healed. Lara's mind drifted back to those days when every touch and every whispered promise from Gabriel had ignited dreams of a shared future. The memory of his once passionate eyes and tender words felt both distant and impossibly close, like echoes of a love that had slipped away too soon. His decision to turn his back on her had shattered not only her heart, but also her belief in the possibility of being truly seen and cherished. In those moments, youthful desire had clashed with the harsh reality of betrayal, leaving her with scars that only grew deeper as the years passed. Now, as she rocked Kennedy in the soft glow of a single lamp, Lara's thoughts became a gentle, almost dreamlike meditation on what once was and what might have been. The soft hum of the night mingled with the tender rhythm of her heartbeat, each beat a quiet reminder of both her vulnerability and her resilience. She recalled the desperate efforts to shield her heart after Gabriel's rejection, hiding behind walls of determination and self-reliance, refusing to let the pain fully consume her. Yet, even as she built those fortifications, the tender parts of her remained exposed, fragile like the wings of a delicate moth drawn to the light. In those silent hours, the past seemed to whisper to her. The voices of lost promises and broken dreams swirled around her like a soft, melancholic lullaby. There was the image of Gabriel walking away, his silhouette receding into the distance under a heavy, rain-soaked sky, a moment frozen in time that had defined the course of her life. That image, along with countless others, painted her nights with bittersweet hues, a constant reminder that love, once lost, leaves an indelible mark on the soul. Yet amid the sorrow, there was also a quiet determination. Every day, Lara fought to nurture Kennedy, to offer her a life filled with love and security, even if her own heart was still learning to trust again. Each lullaby sung softly at bedtime, each gentle caress on her daughter's cheek, was an act of defiance against the pain of the past. It was a promise that, despite all that had been shattered, there remained a capacity for renewal, a possibility that the tender seeds of forgiveness might one day blossom. But as the night deepened and the cool air of the room wrapped around her like a shroud, Lara could not help but wonder if forgiveness was truly within reach. Could she ever let go of the resentment and sorrow that clung so tightly to her heart? Or would the echoes of Gabriel's rejection, with all their raw, unyielding power, forever haunt her days and nights? The contrast was stark. On one hand, there was the vibrant hope symbolized by Kennedy's innocent smile, a beacon of new beginnings. On the other, the relentless specter of a past that refused to be forgotten. In the quiet, introspective hours before sleep claimed her, Lara's thoughts wandered like a solitary traveler on an endless road, the tender memories of what could have been mingled with the stark realities of her present, a life of relentless care for her child, and the ongoing struggle to reclaim her own worth. The softness of Kennedy's gentle breathing was a balm, a soothing counterpoint to the sharp, lingering pain of lost love. And yet, for all the comfort that her daughter brought, the question remained: can the wounds of the past ever truly be healed, or will they forever echo in the corners of her heart? In that fragile liminal space between wakefulness and dreams, as the world outside lay silent under a canopy of stars, Lara allowed herself one final, poignant inquiry. Is forgiveness a distant, unattainable dream? Or can the healing power of new love and unwavering hope finally dissolve the lingering ghosts of a painful past? Lara's days had begun to fracture like a mirror shattered by unseen forces. Routine, the steady heartbeat of her past life, had been disrupted by the looming necessity of change. Now, as she prepared for the significant move between territories, each morning felt like a battle between the call of duty and the unresolved ache of her past with Gabriel. Every step was measured yet filled with an undercurrent of hope and trepidation that pulsed through her like a secret drumbeat. At dawn, as the first light filtered through the cracked window of her modest room, Lara gathered her things with a sense of urgency. Her eyes, heavy with anticipation and weariness, scanned the familiar walls that now seemed to echo with memories of laughter, sorrow, and unspoken words. The routine that once anchored her had given way to restless energy, an internal tumult driven by the necessity to face the unresolved issues with Gabriel and the daunting prospect of navigating life between two worlds. Out on the porch, she met with a few pack members, each interaction laden with subtle signals of both support and concern. Grace, with her ever-kind smile and gentle presence, offered a few reassuring words as she adjusted a stack of belongings. Lara, remember, your strength is woven into every decision you make, Grace said softly, her voice a soothing melody amid the rising chaos. Yet even in her calm, there was an undercurrent of worry, an unspoken question of whether Lara could truly bear the weight of all that was to come. Nearby, Dylan's playful banter did little to mask the gravity of the situation. "I heard you're about to rewrite your story, Lara," he teased, half joking, but with eyes that revealed genuine concern. "Just make sure you don't forget who you are in all the shifting around." His words struck a chord, resonating, with the delicate balance between identity and duty that Lara struggled to maintain. She managed a small smile in return, though her heart pounded with uncertainty. Later, as the day wore on and the preparations reached a fever pitch, Lara found herself caught between the steady pulse of duty and the disquieting echoes of the past. Every task, whether it was packing cherished mementos or checking the maps of territories, reminded her that change was inevitable, yet the path ahead was anything but clear. The unresolved issues with Gabriel loomed like a storm on the horizon. His absence had created a void that no amount of planning or moving could quite fill. The thought of confronting that void, of facing him again, sent shivers of both dread and a reluctant longing through her. In the midst of the bustle, Julian's presence offered a silent anchor. He watched over the preparations with a discerning eye, occasionally offering a word of guidance or a nod that carried the weight of experience. "Your duty here is not just to your pack, it's to yourself," he reminded her in a quiet moment as they reviewed the details of the move. His tone, firm yet compassionate, instilled a flicker of courage within her, a reminder that even amid uncertainty, she held the power to shape her destiny. Yet, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky with strokes of deep orange and violet, the tension within Lara reached its peak. Every whispered conversation, every shared glance among her pack members, was a reminder that the life she knew was dissolving into something new and uncharted. The familiar routine was giving way to a mosaic of shifting allegiances and lingering regrets, a tumultuous blend of duty, hope, and the silent scream of a heart waiting to be heard. In that twilight hour, as Lara stood before a mirror, her reflection a blend of determination and vulnerability, she wrestled with a profound internal question. Could she finally summon the strength to stand up for herself, to confront the unresolved pain that had haunted her for so long? The answer, elusive and shrouded in the mystery of what the future held, seemed to hover just out of reach. And as the last rays of daylight faded, casting long, uncertain shadows across her path, Lara's eyes narrowed with a fierce resolve. The decision that would redefine her life lay before her, one that would either lead her to reclaim her identity or force her to surrender to the weight of her past. With a deep, steadying breath, she stepped forward into the gathering dusk, the promise of change pulsing in her veins, leaving a single burning question in the silence. Will Lara finally find the courage to break free and claim the life that awaits her? Returning home felt like stepping into a battlefield of memories, where every familiar corner held echoes of past betrayals and unresolved heartaches. The drive back was silent, except for the steady hum of the engine and Lara's own racing thoughts. As she pulled into the driveway of the pack house, a mix of apprehension and defiance stirred within her. The once welcoming home now seemed to bristle with tension, as if the very air had thickened with old resentments and hidden discontents. Within minutes, whispers began to circulate among the pack. At the threshold of the grand entrance, Lara was met by a flurry of cautious greetings. Faces that once radiated warmth now bore the weight of judgment. Grace's eyes, usually soft, with understanding, were clouded by concern, while Julian's steady gaze hinted at unspoken questions. It was in this charged atmosphere that Nate made his unwelcome reappearance. "Nate, what are you doing here?" Lara demanded, her voice cutting through the murmurs as she confronted him near the foyer. His smirk, cocky and dismissive, only deepened the chasm between them. "I just came to check on things, Lara. You know how it is," Nate replied, his tone laced with a casual arrogance that clashed sharply with the gravity of the moment. Dylan stepped forward, his normally playful demeanor replaced by a quiet intensity. "This isn't a social visit, Nate. Your timing is off," he stated firmly, his eyes narrowing as he glanced between Lara and Nate. The tension in the room was palpable, a mixture of old flames rekindled into bitter disputes and fresh betrayals that threatened to undo years of hard-won unity. Lara's heart pounded as she tried to steady herself. The confrontation with Nate wasn't new. His interference had been a constant reminder of choices made long ago. Choices that had once ripped her apart. "I didn't ask for your opinion, Nate," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "My life isn't a game for you to play with." Nate's smirk faltered for a moment, replaced by a look of cold defiance. "Oh, come on, Lara. We all know you made some choices that aren't exactly popular. Maybe it's time you face the music." His words were sharp, echoing the whispers that had haunted the corridors of the pack house. Each syllable seemed to dredge up memories of past betrayals and lingering doubts about her decisions. Grace moved to intercede, her tone gentle yet insistent. "Nate, enough. Lara's made her choices, and this isn't the time for your commentary." But Nate wasn't swayed. "I'm just saying sometimes the past has a way of catching up with you," he replied, his voice lowering to a dangerous murmur that sent a ripple of unease through the assembled family. Julian's eyes flickered with controlled frustration as he spoke. "Your words only serve to remind us all that trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired." His statement hung heavily in the air, a stark reminder of the delicate balance the pack had worked so hard to maintain. Lara felt the sting of each word as they penetrated the fragile peace she had painstakingly built. Every remark from Nate reopened wounds that had almost healed. Every insinuation a reminder of the betrayals that had once threatened to tear her apart. She looked around at the faces of those who had come to support her. Faces now filled with conflicted emotions. The love and loyalty of her family clashed with the ghosts of her past, leaving her to wonder if they could ever fully accept the choices she had made. As the conversation quieted and Nate's figure receded into the background, an uneasy silence enveloped the room. Lara's mind swirled with questions about identity, trust, and the cost of moving forward when the past still loomed large. The pack's unity, so carefully nurtured over the years, now seemed precariously balanced on the edge of old grievances and fresh confrontations. In that lingering moment, with the echoes of Nate's parting words still resonating, Lara's heart ached with a profound unspoken inquiry. As she stood there, surrounded by both support and skepticism, she couldn't help but ask herself, can my family and my pack ever truly accept the choices I've made? Or will the specters of my past continue to shadow every step I take? The tension in the corridor was palpable as Lara's simmering emotions reached their boiling point. In the dimly lit hall, where shadows danced along the walls, Nate's cold, calculated glare met Jace's protective stance, and Lara's voice, trembling yet determined, cut through the silence like shattered glass. The air crackled with unspoken accusations and years of repressed fury, each heartbeat echoing the weight of long-held grievances. "Enough is enough," Lara cried, her tone a mix of desperation and defiance. Her eyes blazed with a raw intensity as she stepped forward, confronting Nate directly. "I've carried your venom for far too long, and I won't let your bitterness define who I am any longer." Her words, though measured, were laced with a fierce urgency that left no room for retreat. Nate's smirk faltered, replaced by a flash of anger as he retorted, "You think you can just erase your past? You're not innocent in this mess, Lara." His voice, low and menacing, reverberated off the cold, hard walls of the hall. Jace moved closer, his posture protective as he positioned himself between Nate and Lara. "This isn't about blame anymore," he interjected, his tone steady but his eyes burning with determination. "It's about setting the record straight. Lara deserves the truth, and a chance to be heard without your constant interference." His words, though few, cut sharply into the charged atmosphere, underscoring the high stakes of this moment. Lara's heart pounded as she struggled to articulate. The storm of emotions within her, every word felt like a battle cry against the past, every syllable a step toward reclaiming her own narrative. "I am not defined by your lies, Nate," she said, her voice quivering with both sorrow and strength. "I've spent years trying to protect myself from the pain of rejection, from the wounds you helped inflict. And now, I'm finally ready to stand up, not just for me, but for my truth." Her declaration hung in the air, raw and unfiltered, as if daring the darkness to challenge her resolve. Nate's eyes narrowed, his expression twisting into a sneer that betrayed his inner turmoil. "Your truth. All I see is a woman clinging to illusions of vindication," he spat, his tone dripping with disdain. In response, Jace's hand clenched into a fist at his side, a silent promise that he would not allow the past to continue its assault on Lara's fragile sense of self. The confrontation escalated quickly. Voices rose, mingling with the sound of hurried footsteps and the creak of old floorboards as the trio's emotions clashed in a chaotic symphony. Lara's pulse raced as she took a step back, her mind reeling from the intensity of the moment. She recalled every bitter memory, every unspoken hurt, and the familiar sting of betrayal surged through her like a tidal wave. Yet even as the pain threatened to overwhelm her, a resolute determination sparked within, a stubborn flame of hope that demanded justice, that demanded liberation from the chains of her past. "Look at me, Nate," Lara demanded, her voice echoing off the walls with a fervor that silenced even the murmurs of the onlookers. "I'm tired of hiding behind your accusations, of living in the shadow of all that you claim I am. I need to be free, free of the guilt, free of the pain, and free to rebuild who I truly am." Her words, both vulnerable and defiant, revealed a woman who had been scarred by life, but refused to be broken by it. In that charged moment, the air seemed to still, holding its breath as the confrontation reached its climax. The conflicting forces of past and present, of sorrow and strength, merged into a single, electric pulse. Nate's glare softened for an instant, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty, while Jace's steadfast presence reinforced Lara's resolve. And in the midst of it all, Lara's own heart beat with the fierce desire for vindication, a longing to finally claim her identity without the weight of old betrayals pressing her down. As the tension reached a fragile equilibrium, with the echoes of harsh words and unresolved anger lingering in the space between them, one burning question remained suspended in the charged silence. Will this confrontation lead to true liberation, or is it merely the prelude to further chaos in a world where the past still refuses to be forgotten? The world narrowed to a single suffocating point as Nate's grip tightened around her arm. In an instant, the familiar warmth of the pack house was ripped away, replaced by the chill of a looming danger. Lara's heart pounded in her ears as Nate dragged her forcefully toward a nondescript, run-down building at the edge of the territory. Each step felt like an eternity, and every sound, a distant siren, the echo of their hurried footsteps, amplified the dread swirling inside her. Inside the warehouse, the air was thick and heavy, saturated with the musty stench of decay and disuse. Flickering overhead lights cast erratic, ghostly shadows across the concrete floor. The space was vast, yet oppressively close, the low ceiling and narrow corridors closing in like the walls of a coffin. Lara's skin prickled with fear as she was shoved into a dark, narrow passageway, leading down into a basement that reeked of rust and cold stone. Her pulse raced in her throat. Each breath was shallow, as if the very air conspired to leave her gasping for more. The sounds of the world above were muffled, reduced to a distant, unreal hum that barely reached the depths of the foreboding basement. In this claustrophobic space, the darkness seemed to breathe, alive with hidden menace. Lara's eyes darted frantically, trying to find any glimmer of hope. A window, a door, anything to signal an escape. The oppressive silence was broken only by the scuffle of her own labored breathing and the relentless echoing thud of her heart. Every sense was overwhelmed by terror. The cold, rough texture of the concrete against her skin, the metallic tang of blood in the back of her throat, the low, ominous hum of machinery in the distance. Nate's presence was an ever-looming shadow. His footsteps measured and unyielding as he maneuvered her deeper into the labyrinth of the warehouse. His voice, low and threatening, barely registered over the roar of her own panic, but each word served as a cruel reminder that she was not in control. Lara's mind raced in desperate search of a way out, every thought a jolt of raw, frantic energy. Memories of past joys, of the warmth and security of her family and pack, flashed before her eyes like distant, unreachable stars. In the midst of her terror, a small, desperate hope began to flicker. A hope that somewhere, somehow, rescue might be near. It was the faintest spark in the overwhelming darkness. A reminder that even in the deepest despair, the human spirit could cling to the possibility of salvation. Her eyes, wide with fear and determination, caught glimpses of the basement's eerie details. A stack of forgotten crates, a broken window sealed with rusted metal bars, and a single exit door shrouded in darkness. The rhythmic clatter of her own heart was a relentless metronome, counting down the seconds until her fate would be sealed, or perhaps until someone would come for her. Every inch of the space around her seemed to pulse with a life of its own. A living nightmare, where every shadow whispered threats, and every creak of the old structure sounded like the approach of something terrible. In that high-stakes moment, as Nate's grip remained unyielding and the oppressive darkness pressed in, on all sides, Lara's thoughts twisted into a frantic question that reverberated through the silence. With the weight of the world bearing down on her in this suffocating basement, will salvation break through the shadows, or is she destined to be lost in this journey into the dark forever? In the dim, oppressive silence of captivity, Lara's heart pounded with a desperate urgency as she heard a soft, muffled cry echo through the cold, stone corridor. Every instinct screamed for her to follow that sound, and when she finally found Kennedy huddled in a dark corner of a damp cell, the shock of the moment shattered the lingering numbness of fear. Time seemed to slow as Lara knelt beside her daughter, who trembled with terror, her wide eyes reflecting the depths of an unimaginable nightmare. The reunion was raw and unfiltered, a collision of pain, relief, and the overwhelming need to protect. Kennedy, with her small, fragile form, clutched a tattered blanket that had seen better days. Her face, streaked with tears and smeared with dirt, bore a delicate scar that ran from just beneath her eye to the corner of her lip, a haunting reminder of the horrors she had endured. Lara's own eyes filled with tears at the sight, each droplet a bitter mix of sorrow and fierce, unyielding love. Without a word, she scooped Kennedy into her arms, holding her as if she could fuse their broken pieces together with the sheer force of her embrace. The scene unfolded like a cinematic revelation. The low hum of a distant, indifferent world outside contrasted with the quiet, desperate whispers between mother and daughter. In that moment, the pack house and all its hopeful memories faded into a blurred background, replaced by the immediate, visceral reality of their reunion. Lara's arms trembled as she cradled Kennedy, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. She whispered, softly, "I'm here, my love. I'm not going to let anything hurt you again." Her voice, thick with emotion, was both a promise and a plea, a desperate vow to shield this tiny, brave soul from the unrelenting cruelty of the world. Kennedy's eyes, still wide with residual fear, slowly met her mother's, and in them, Lara saw a flicker of hope, a spark that had nearly been extinguished by darkness. The scar on Kennedy's face, a permanent mark of the traumatic ordeal, shone under the faint light like a bruise that would one day fade. Lara gently traced the scar with her fingertips, as if trying to erase the memory with every tender caress. "I'm so sorry you had to see that," she murmured, her voice breaking with grief and determination. "But you're safe now, and I promise we'll find a way through this together." Outside the grim confines of their temporary prison, the world remained oblivious to the anguish unfolding within those walls. Yet, in that intimate space, every sound, the echo of distant footsteps, the soft drip of water from a leaky pipe, the quiet shuffling of others in nearby cells, seemed to underscore the enormity of their shared pain and the fragile hope of rescue. Lara's resolve hardened with every heartbeat. This was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming their lives, their identities, and above all, their future. In the midst of their tender reunion, the scars of the past and the weight of the present converged. Lara knew that this traumatic event would not simply vanish with a few comforting words or a tight embrace. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty and lingering shadows of abuse, betrayal, and loss. The raw intensity of that moment, charged with both maternal desperation and the unspoken promise of protection, laid bare the intricate tapestry of their intertwined destinies. As the night deepened and the harsh reality of captivity loomed over them, Lara held her daughter close, silently vowing to fight against every obstacle that dared to threaten their fragile bond. In that delicate, heart-wrenching silence, with tears mingling on their cheeks and the scar a stark reminder of their ordeal, one burning question lingered in the air, a question that pulsed with the promise of both despair and renewal. How will this traumatic event reshape their destiny? And can the scars of the past ever truly give way to a future defined by hope and healing? Gabriel's voice cut sharply through the tense quiet of the strategy room, where a rough map of territories and annotated routes lay spread across a scarred wooden table. "We have less than an hour before the enemy tightens their grip," he said, his tone both commanding and laced with urgency. Around him, the pack's key figures, Julian, Dylan, and several high-ranking warriors, listened intently, their expressions a mixture of determination and worry. The weight of Kennedy's abduction pressed heavily on them all. Julian's fingers traced a route marked in red on the map. "This corridor here," he pointed, "leads us through the industrial sector. It's risky, but it avoids the main roads where enemy patrols are likely to be." His voice was calm, even as his eyes flickered with concern. Dylan interjected, "Risky isn't exactly our style, but if it means getting Kennedy back safely, we'll run that gauntlet." The tension in his tone betrayed a quiet resolve, one honed by years of defending their territory. Gabriel paced slowly behind the table, his mind racing as he coordinated their next moves. "I've received word from our scouts," he informed them, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting the message to vanish. A small team spotted unusual activity near the abandoned warehouse in the west. That could be our target location. His eyes narrowed as he considered the implications. A location that was notoriously unpredictable, its secrets as deep as the darkness that cloaked it. "We need to split into 2 groups," he continued, his voice firm. "One team will approach, covertly on foot. The other, led by me, will secure a vehicle for a rapid extraction once Kennedy is found." A murmur of agreement passed through the room, though a palpable tension lingered beneath their coordinated readiness. One of the younger warriors, his voice steady but laced with anxiety, asked, "What if the enemy has already fortified that warehouse? Our scouts' reports are thin on details." Gabriel's jaw tightened, and for a brief moment, the normally unflappable Alpha allowed a flicker of uncertainty to cross his face. "We adapt," he replied sharply. "Every second counts. Our priority is Kennedy's safety," as orders were issued in quick, precise snippets. "Group A, move to the east corridor. Group B, fall in behind me. Maintain radio silence until contact is made." The pack mobilized like a well-oiled machine. The energy in the room surged. There was an electric charge as every member steeled themselves for the rescue operation. Outside, the clamor of disciplined footsteps, low, urgent commands, and the occasional growl of determination reverberated in the cool night air. In the shadows of their territory, the pack spread out, each member a silent guardian of their home. Gabriel led his team toward the west, his mind a tumult of strategic calculations and the personal anguish of his past mistakes. Every step toward the unknown was a step laden with both hope and dread. His inner voice, a constant reminder of the stakes involved, whispered of the fragile nature of redemption and the cost of lost time. Back at the rendezvous point, Julian and Dylan double-checked their gear, their expressions a mirror of focus and tension. "We're not just rescuing a child," Dylan muttered, almost to himself. "We're reclaiming a part of our future." Julian nodded, his eyes dark with purpose. The gravity of their mission was clear. A successful extraction could mend broken bonds and restore hope within the pack, while failure could shatter what little unity they had left. As the two groups converged on the ominous outline of the abandoned warehouse, the darkness around them seemed to pulse with hidden menace. The warehouse loomed in the distance, a hulking silhouette against a sky smeared with deep indigo and the faint glow of a restless moon. Gabriel's heart hammered in his chest as he signaled his team to halt, every sense on high alert for any sign of movement, any sound that might betray their target's location. In that charged, breathless moment, as the echo of distant footsteps and the subtle rustle of debris filled the heavy silence, Gabriel's eyes locked onto the entrance of the warehouse. His voice, low and resolute, broke the tension once more. "Stay sharp. Every second matters." With their fates hanging in the balance, one final haunting question reverberated through the pack's collective mind. Will their coordinated assault lead to the salvation they so desperately seek, or will the dark corridors of the warehouse swallow them whole, leaving Kennedy, and perhaps their future, lost in the void? The night exploded into action as the pack split into two sharp, coordinated teams. Under the ghostly glow of a crescent moon, every second pulsed with urgency. Gabriel led one unit, his eyes locked on the dark silhouette of the abandoned warehouse. The other team, led by Julian and Dylan, fanned out to flank the structure, their every move synchronized like a well-rehearsed ballet of warriors. In the cool air, the rogue scent was unmistakable, a faint, acrid smell carried by the wind that set every sense on high alert. Gabriel's team advanced quickly but quietly, each step calculated and deliberate. The crunch of gravel underfoot was a steady, rhythmic beat that merged with the low murmur of urgent commands over their radios. "Team A, move in," Gabriel whispered, his voice tight with focus. "Team B, hold position until I signal." The warehouse loomed ahead, its broken windows and sagging roof a testament to years of neglect and danger. Shadows writhed across its walls as if hiding secrets. The teams converged silently on the perimeter. Every warrior's heartbeat throbbed, in unison with the tension of the impending confrontation. A sharp crack of a loose board snapped the silence. Instantly, every pack member tensed, eyes darting in every direction. The scent intensified, mingling with the promise of impending conflict. Gabriel signaled, "On my mark, breach the entrance." In unison, they surged forward. Heavy footsteps, urgent whispers, and the clatter of equipment filled the air. The door gave way under a combined force, splintering into the darkness. Inside, the warehouse was a cavern of echoing voids and lurking menace. Flashlights cut through the gloom in rapid, sweeping arcs, illuminating fleeting glimpses of abandoned crates and broken glass. Every shadow moved like a phantom. The rogue scent grew stronger, directing them deeper into the labyrinth. A sudden shout split the tense quiet. Someone had caught movement in the far corner. "Contact!" someone yelled. The team reacted instantly, weapons raised, hearts pounding. The sound of scuffling feet and a low growl reverberated off the cold, concrete walls. In that split second, every warrior became hyper-aware of each breath, each heartbeat, a chain of moments leading to either salvation or disaster. Julian's voice came through sharply. "Keep formation. No one goes off alone." His command was a lifeline amid the chaos, a reminder that the pack's unity was their greatest strength. Through the flickering beams, a figure could be seen moving erratically, a mix of desperation and determination. It was Kennedy. Her small form was visible behind a cluster of crates, her eyes wide with terror, yet clinging to hope. "Kennedy," Gabriel barked, pushing forward with renewed vigor. The team closed in, clearing obstacles and advancing with relentless precision. Every moment was cinematic, each burst of adrenaline, each flash of determination etched into the lines on their faces. In the frantic rush, the sound of their coordinated steps and clashing commands filled the space, a raw symphony of urgency. But then, from the depths of the warehouse, a roar, a challenge, erupted. The enemy, alerted by the disturbance, surged from the shadows. A fierce confrontation erupted in a blur of motion. Blasts of light from flashlights and rapid, staccato shouts mingled with the sound of combat. The rescuers fought as one, a seamless union of strength and strategy, driven by the singular mission of reclaiming what was taken. Amid the chaos, Gabriel's focus was unyielding. He spotted Kennedy and reached out, his call cutting through the din. "I've got her." With a swift, protective motion, he scooped her into his arms, her small body trembling against his solid form. As he backed away, the noise of the conflict surged around them, a desperate, heart-pounding crescendo. The team regrouped quickly, forming a protective perimeter as they prepared to exit the hostile space. Every second, every heartbeat was a race against time and the unpredictable enemy that lurked in every dark corner. The mission teetered on, a knife's edge, a precarious balance of valor and uncertainty. And as they pressed forward into the uncertain night, the question that echoed in every warrior's mind was as sharp as the clash of metal and the pounding of hearts. Will the Pack's unity be enough to reclaim what was taken? In the stillness that followed the chaos of the rescue, an almost palpable silence enveloped the Pack's territory. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind only the raw, aching aftermath of what had transpired. Lara and Gabriel found themselves, together in a quiet corner of the pack house, the weight of their ordeal settling over them like a heavy, familiar shroud. Lara's hands trembled as she held Kennedy close, her daughter's soft, uneven breathing a bittersweet counterpoint to the distant echoes of conflict. The scars of the warehouse rescue, both visible and invisible, etched themselves deep into her soul. Every bruise and every lingering memory of fear mingled with the tender relief of having saved her child. Her eyes, still glistening with unshed, tears darted to Gabriel, searching his face for answers, for some sign that the pain they had endured would eventually fade. Gabriel, his features etched with exhaustion and regret, exhaled slowly as he tried to steady his racing heart. His mind replayed every moment of the rescue. The desperate rush through dark corridors, the clashing of flashlights against shadows, and the raw sound of combat echoing in the cavernous warehouse. Now, in this fragile moment of calm, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of his choices, the regret of past rejections, and the desperate need for redemption. His eyes softened as he looked at Lara, a silent apology passing between them. The tension between them, built over years of unresolved emotions, now seemed to be thawing into something tender, a tentative hope that perhaps they could mend what had been broken. Around them, the pack moved quietly, their energy subdued as they attended to the wounded and processed the intensity of the night's events. In the quiet aftermath, every whispered conversation and gentle pat on the shoulder underscored the collective resolve to heal. Yet, for Lara and Gabriel, the silence was a private landscape where the memories of violence mingled with the promise of solace. They moved slowly to a secluded room, where the soft glow of a single lamp illuminated their faces, revealing the raw vulnerability etched in every line. Lara sat on the edge of a worn sofa, her gaze fixed on a spot in the distance as she relived the night's turmoil. "I keep wondering if we'll ever be free of it all," she murmured, her voice barely audible. The fear, The anger. It feels like these scars will never truly fade. Gabriel sat beside her, his hand reaching out tentatively to brush a tear from her cheek. "We've been through so much," he said quietly, his tone heavy with both sorrow and determination. Maybe this is the beginning of something different. A chance to finally learn how to forgive ourselves, and perhaps each other. The room was filled with the soft sound of their breathing, intermingled with the distant murmur of the pack as they continued their recovery. Every moment was both an echo of the pain they had endured and a whisper of the possibility of healing. In that delicate space, where the harshness of the rescue had given way to reflective quiet, the future seemed uncertain, yet laced with the potential for redemption. Their shared silence spoke of mutual understanding, a recognition that the fractures of the past were deep, but that healing, however slow, was not impossible. Gabriel's eyes met Lara's, and in that gaze lay a question that had been unspoken for too long. The pain of betrayal, the relentless pursuit of lost time, and the scars of past mistakes all converged in that moment of stillness. "Do you think—" he began, his voice faltering under the weight of the question. "Do you think forgiveness can ever truly mend the fractures of our past? Or are these wounds destined to remind us forever of what we lost?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unresolved, a poignant reflection of their inner turmoil and the uncertain path ahead. In that solitary, fragile moment, with the soft light casting long shadows on the walls, Lara's heart whispered its own silent answer. Yet, the answer remained as elusive as the promise of a new dawn, a hope that perhaps, one day, the pain might give way to the quiet, enduring peace they so desperately longed for. In the quiet aftermath of their shared turmoil, Lara and Gabriel found themselves in a secluded corner of the pack house, a small, dimly lit room that seemed to cradle their fragile hope. The soft glow of a bedside lamp bathed the space in gentle amber hues, transforming the stark reality of past betrayals into a canvas upon which new beginnings might one day be painted. Lara sat cross-legged on the worn rug, her fingers tracing the patterns on its faded surface. Gabriel stood a few paces away, his posture tense yet hesitant, as if he were about to bridge an immense distance with a single decisive step. The air between them was heavy with unspoken words, a mosaic of hurt, longing, and tentative resolve. "Lara," Gabriel began quietly, his voice trembling with sincerity. "I know I've hurt you. Every day, I feel the weight of what I lost by pushing you away." His eyes, dark and earnest, searched hers for a sign of forgiveness, of understanding. "I never imagined the cost of my pride would be this high." Lara's gaze softened, though the scars of their past were etched deeply into her features. "I've spent so long trying to hide my pain," she replied, her tone both raw and vulnerable. "Each time I looked in the mirror, I saw the ghost of what I once believed we had. It shattered me. But maybe it's time we try to rebuild something. If we can." Gabriel stepped closer, his movement deliberate and cautious. "I want to rebuild," he said, almost in a whisper. "Not just for me, but for us. For the connection we once shared. I want to honor our bond by making things right, even if it takes every ounce of strength I have." His words were accompanied by the quiet intensity of a man who has long carried regret and is now ready to confront his own vulnerabilities. Lara inhaled deeply, her mind a flurry of memories, the laughter, the silent promises of shared dreams, and the bitter sting of betrayal. "Rebuilding trust isn't simple," she murmured. "It's like trying to mend shattered glass with pieces that still cut. I've been hurt. I'm scared that every step forward might reopen old wounds." Her eyes glistened in the low light, reflecting a soul both cautious and yearning. A long pause settled between them, punctuated only by the soft hum of the night outside. Then Gabriel spoke again, his voice steady. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness immediately, Lara. But every day, I'm willing to prove that I can be the partner you once believed in, a mate who cherishes you, who learns from his mistakes." His hand reached out, hovering in the space between them, as if testing whether the fragile bridge they were building could bear the weight of their combined hopes. Lara slowly extended her hand, her fingers trembling as they made contact with his. In that touch, there was a gentle, almost cinematic promise, a quiet acknowledgement of their shared pain and a tentative pledge to work toward healing. "Maybe," she said softly, "we can start by listening, really listening to each other. Not just to our words, but to the silences that carry all the truths we're too afraid to say." Outside the small room, the distant sounds of the pack's nightly routine provided a subtle backdrop, a reminder that life continued even amid the heavy work of healing. Each hushed footstep, every whispered conversation, seemed to mirror the delicate process unfolding before them. In that dim sanctuary, time itself appeared to slow, giving them space to breathe, to reflect, and to dare to hope once more. As the night deepened and their words faded into a soft murmur, an unspoken question lingered between them, a question as fragile as the trust they were striving to rebuild. Will the delicate tendrils of forgiveness and renewed understanding eventually blossom into a lasting love? Or are these scars destined to forever remind them of the pain that nearly tore them apart? At the break of dawn, the world seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of a fresh start. The first light of day spilled gently over the pack house, illuminating the scars of yesterday with a soft, forgiving glow. In the early morning mist, Lara and Gabriel stood side by side, their eyes reflecting both the pain they had endured and the quiet promise of redemption. Around them, the pack stirred, a family united by shared hardships and unspoken bonds that had only grown stronger through time. Grace, Julian, and Dylan, along with the other pack members, gathered in the common hall, where whispered reassurances and tentative smiles filled the air. The atmosphere was a delicate blend of reverence for the past and cautious optimism for what lay ahead. The once raw wounds were slowly being tended to with empathy and collective care, a testament to the resilience of the human and wolf spirit alike. Lara's gaze fell upon Kennedy, who, with innocent eyes and a gentle smile, symbolized the future they were all working to build. Every soft giggle and every small, confident step taken by the little girl was a reminder that even the deepest scars could heal when nurtured with love. "This is our new beginning," Lara murmured, her voice a mix of relief and determination, as she cradled Kennedy closer to her heart. Gabriel's presence beside her, steady and protective, was a silent vow that the mistakes of the past would no longer dictate their future. "We have the chance to rewrite our story," he said, his tone resolute yet tender. "Every sunrise offers us a moment to choose forgiveness, to embrace our wounds as marks of strength rather than signs of defeat." His words resonated through the quiet hall, echoing in the hearts of those who had witnessed the turmoil and transformation of recent times. The pack's unity was palpable, in the soft murmur of shared plans and the gentle hum of daily routines. There was an unspoken acknowledgement that, despite the challenges, love and loyalty would always prevail. Together, they began to map out a future where each member's unique journey contributed to a larger tapestry of redemption and hope. There were talks of new alliances, of rebuilding territories, and of nurturing bonds that had been tested by time and turmoil. The resilience of the pack shone through in every careful word and determined glance. In a quiet corner of the great hall, Gabriel and Lara exchanged a look laden with meaning, an unspoken promise that no matter how uncertain the path might be, they would face it together. Their relationship, once fractured by pain and misunderstanding, now had the opportunity to flourish anew, nurtured by the lessons of the past and the collective strength of a family that refused to give up on one Another, the warmth of their renewed bond radiated outwards, touching even the most cautious hearts in the room. Outside, the world was beginning to stir with the promise of a new day. The horizon was a soft canvas of light and color, hinting at untold possibilities and the beauty of beginnings. As the pack moved together toward a future filled with both hope and uncertainty, each member carried the weight of their scars lightly, knowing that healing was a process and that every challenge was an opportunity for growth. In that delicate, transformative moment, Lara felt the steady pulse of her heart and the quiet strength of her resolve. The long night of strife had given way to a new dawn, a moment when redemption was within reach, and every breath was a reminder that love, in all its mysterious forms, could rebuild even the most fractured bonds. Yet, as the sun climbed higher and cast its radiant light upon the pack, one lingering question echoed softly in Lara's mind, mingling with the hopeful promise of the day. What new challenges and wonders await on this uncharted path? And can the unity and love of this resilient family weather the storms yet to come?